Now that our application is running on our emulator, and now it's time to apply navigation. When we press this next button, we should land on the second screen, and inside the second screen we have a back button. When we press that, we should come back to our first screen. So we have two screens. For first screen we need to create a key. For second screen we need to create another key. So what are keys? So I want you to take to official documentation. So okay, so here as you can see, it says in this under navigation 3, understand and implementation the basics, it says in navigation 3 the backstack does not actually contain content. Instead it contains references to content known as keys, and keys can be any type but are usually simple serializable data classes. Okay, so keys are used only to refer the screens. In the backstack we will create a list that we will call the backstack, and inside this backstack list we will not directly put these composable functions. Instead we will put those keys, and keys are simply data classes or object. So I want to put all the keys into a separate file, and that's why I'm going to create a new package under UI. Let's right click, new, and package. Let's name it as keys, and under this package I'm going to create a new file perhaps, and let's name it as screen keys, or you can put any name you want. I'm going to define two objects for two screens. So let's say data and object, and let's name the key as if it is first screen, I can name it as like first route, and another one I need which is data object, which is like second route. So this first route, this key will correspond to first screen, and the second route will correspond to the second screen over here. We need to annotate these objects with serializable, but I'm not going to do that because why we need serializable annotations I need to explain to you, or I want to show some scenarios where you will understand why we need serializable objects. Okay, so now it's time to put these two keys into a list, and that's why we need to go to the main activity, and inside this main activity, inside my app, what I'm going to do is, before we declare the scaffold, so here I'm going to create a list. So let's name it as val backstack, just like that, backstack, and now you have to write remember, and inside that you have to type mutable state list of, and then as a parameter or default value I'm simply passing first route, just like that. Or you can specify the type of this list, and here I'm just specifying any. So keys are any type. The type would be like any, that's why I'm specifying the type here. If you don't want to specify the type here, please don't specify, it's up to you. So right now I have created a list, a backstack. It is a list and it is a mutable list. That means we can put items, we can remove items from this list, and the items will be this type or object, of any type of object. Okay, so now we have the stack, we have the keys. Now we need to tell the system or Android which screen or which composable function to render for which key. So we need to tell Android that for the first route, for this key you have to render this composable function. For the second route you have to render the second screen. And I'm going to remove this first screen line from here. Instead I'm going to introduce another composable function, which is a nav display. So nav display is kind of it's like a container that will contain all the nav entry. So we have to define some nav entry. So what are nav entries actually? So we have two keys. So for each key, to convert the key to corresponding content, we need a nav entry. Okay, so we have two screens, so we need to define two nav entries, and we need to define them inside this nav display. You just start typing the argument name. The first thing we need to provide is this backstack we just created. So we need to pass this backstack to this nav display. So perhaps we have a property just like this. We have a property for nav display, which is backstack, and just pass this backstack over here. So this is number one. Number two, we have to define on back. So what if we press the device's back button? That's where we need to define a lambda, and inside that lambda we have to define what will happen when user use the back gesture or press the device back button. We will simply remove the top item from this list. So at the end of the day, it is a list. We can manipulate, we can add items to this list, we can remove items from this list. So on back, we simply say backstack dot remove last, remove the last item, or null, or if there is no item in the list, it will simply return null. So this is the number one argument, this is number two, and the most important one, which is an entry provider. Okay, so this is where we will define our nav entry and transform each key to the content. So for entry provider, we have two options to provide a value for this entry provider. We can provide a function directly, a lambda, or we can use the entry provider DSL. I'm going to show you the first way. So here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to provide a lambda, a function, and in this block, we will receive an argument of type key. The key we will receive here, the same key that we have put in this backstack, the same key we have defined in our screen keys file. Okay, so let's name it as key, and then we need to check whether this key actually matches with the first route or the second route. So in this case, we can use a when block. So let's say when, and we will match the key, another bracket. So first of all, we need to check if this key is first route. If it is so, then we have to create a nav entry just like that, and as a parameter we get the key, and from this lambda block we need to return the corresponding composable function. So if the key is first route, then definitely we need to return our first screen composable function. So let's say first screen, and we have to provide a mandatory function over here. So this is the function. So this is for if the key is first route. Okay, so now I need to check if it is the second route. If it is the second route, we have to create another nav entry, and we get a key, and then from here we need to return the second screen. So second screen also requires on button pressed. I'm just providing an empty lambda. So if the key is first route, return this. If the key is second route, return this. And then we have to provide like an else block. So if the key doesn't match with any of this, so let's say else, and here we'll say nav entry, and let's say it is let's provide the key over here, and from here simply like a text component or text composable, and say unknown route. Okay, unknown route, just like that. Okay, so now we are done with this entry provider. So let me remind you what we have done so far. So whenever we are finished with creating the screens, first of all we need to create the keys. So this is for the first route, this is for the second route, this is for the first screen, this is for the second screen, and then we need to create a stack, a list, which is a mutable state list of any type, and we are giving the first route as the first item of this list. So this is the first or only item in the list, and this is the topmost item in the backstack, and only the topmost item in the backstack is shown on the mobile screen. And thirdly, we have used this Nav Display composable function, which is responsible for creating the nav entry that actually converts each key to corresponding content. That's it. So now I think okay, another thing to do, because whenever we press the next button, what we'll do, and whenever we press the second screen's back button, what we'll do. So simply in the first screen on button pressed, we will go to second screen by adding the second route into this backstack. This is very simple. So let's say backstack.add and simply add the second route, this one over here. Okay, and then when we when we're on the second screen and press the back to home button, from here we will simply say this one over here. Okay, I'm going to copy this and simply paste it over here. Fine, now I want to restart the application and check it on our emulator. Okay, now you see we're on the first screen and it is decided by this entry provider, and when you press this next button we are on the second screen, and if I hit this back to home button, now again we are in the first screen.